You're listening to RTE Radio.
And why did you steal milk from outside the shop?
Q102.
Feel good music you can sing along to.
Today FM.
Now playing Today FM.
You painted the nails and you even did your Ronnie. Well, good on you. How are you doing? I don't mean that in a Joey from Friends way, but...
And register today. Supporting local businesses in the kingdom. Spin Southwest, #1 for music and entertainment.
You're listening to Wired FM, and that was Boy Meets Girl.
Wired FM is a student-run radio station in Limerick.
So almost 100 years ago, the founders of this republic that we have decided that they wanted some kind of a way of communicating with the populace and of bringing people together. So after a very bitter civil war and after partition in the north of Ireland, they wanted a voice that would be an identifier for the new nation that we were trying to grow. And that was the case for lots of different reasons. We ended up with what's become the public service broadcaster, RTE. And that was the only licensed station up until 1988. In the 1970s, when I was young, pirate radio was really on the up and coming. It was there were stations in every city and town in Ireland. There were 4 or 5 here in Limerick, very famous ones. There were maybe 20 plus in Dublin when I was a young woman. And we loved our pirate stations because RTE weren't playing pop music at the time. Community radio is quite different to commercial radio or to public service broadcasting. It's often called the third sector in broadcasting, because while we think of radio as being to do with communication, it's actually more focused on developing the community of people it serves. So every community radio station is owned by the people it serves. For example, Wired FM is actually owned by the students themselves. It's not owned by the colleges, it's not owned by the management team, it's not owned even by the board. The board represents, or is supposed to represent, the community that's there.
You're listening to Wired 99.9 FM.
Community radio's appeal to me now, and when I first got involved in it, is it's the kind of DIY nature of it. You know, it shares a lot of kind of similarities to a lot of the music scenes and stuff that I would have grew up with and be interested in. You know, specifically DIY and punk and stuff like that. So, you know, no shareholders, nobody like telling you what music to play and stuff like that, and kind of engaging and being out in the community and talking to people that don't get the airtime elsewhere and stuff like that. Like, so it's, I mean, community radio to me, I love the community project element of it, you know? Yeah, the links that you make with the other community organisations and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not commercial.
So Spin Southwest launched in the summer of 2007. So Spin is turning Sweet 16 this July. There was nothing like it in the Southwest. There was no youth station bar 2FM, which was the national station, and then obviously with the local stations of Clare FM and Live 95 and Tip FM. So it was a big opportunity and a big gap in the market for a 15 to 35 year old station. The station was run at the time by Dennis O'Brien's Communicore. So we had our sister station, Spin 103 in Dublin, which was broadcasting 60 years already. So it was kind of a carbon copy of what was running in Dublin, but just with a local twist here. At the time, there was probably a big staffing of 30 to 40 people. We had a full news service. We had 2 people on breakfast. We had 2 people on drive time. We had 2 people on the Zucker in the evening, and also a talk show as well. And I can actually just remember the excitement of the station starting because it was new for everyone. Nessa McGann was the programme director at the time, and she'd come previously from being station manager at Wired FM in Mary I, and it was just new to everyone. The station didn't exist, so we had to get salespeople. We had 4 promotional pink minis at the time. That's where the famous Spinnies started, with the convoy of 4 cars. And it was just new. It was fresh. The news was tailored towards the 15 to 35 year old market. The music was fresh. The playlist of 2008.
Aside from the obvious, the media students who are studying broadcasting or studying film, I mean, they learn how to tell stories. You know, that's a huge part of broadcasting, whether it be TV or radio, the ability to tell stories. Even if you're just presenting and doing links on a show, there's a storytelling element of it.
It was through radio that I was able to make my first documentary, Invisibilities. I think that's what radio kind of allows people to do and allows me to do, is to find stories, and even if they're not exactly mine, or if I just relate to them even slightly, it allows you to do that. Because both my documentaries, my first one, Invisibilities, which is the stories of people with invisible disabilities, and then Lost in Transit, my more recent one, which is the story of trans people in Ireland and how trans healthcare has fallen by the wayside, are both two communities which I care about very dearly, and I think are very important because they're often not listened to and not heard. And just in the stuff that I like to do, I like to bring attention to that and tell people's stories in very raw and personal ways. And I thought, like, through radio documentaries and through radio in general is one of the best ways to do that. And the best place to do that is in college, where you can experiment and try things properly.
I'm Emma Ryan. I am 29 years old. I am a media and French student here in Mary Immaculate College, and I am currently in second year. So I started volunteering at Wired last year, first year, because I was already involved with Limerick City Community Radio, and because there's a connection there, there's Limerick City Community Radio take over the 99.9 FM frequency on the weekends. I kind of was like a shoe-in to come in here. So I started that in first year. I was originally on my own, and this semester of second year, a few other people have joined me in the show, and it's called Chatting Away, and our slot now is Tuesday from 1 until 2, and it's honestly great crack. To me, it's very therapeutic. I just like to come in, forget about college, forget about life outside this radio station's door, and just have a bit of a laugh and talk about stuff from movies to music to what's happening in Limerick to just general life and how we're getting on with how it's going. Me and the two lads and one girl that's involved now, Katie, Marcus and David.
So yeah, I started back in 2007 when the station first opened. I started as a newsreader, went on from that to present to the Zoo Group for a little while, and now I've been on Spins fully charged for the last 6 years and I'm loving it.
I started as a spinny, driving those lovely pink minis around the southwest, and then I decided that, you know what, I actually kind of like this. I like chatting to the presenters on the radio, so I decided to dive into myself. I started on the Zoo Group, and then I ended up on Fully Charged on the Breakfast Show, and I've been there for the last 5 years. Working in radio is a great crack. You get to work with a good friend every day, and we have great chemistry on the show, so we get on really, really well, which really helps. We meet some great celebrities and stars like Niall Horan, Lewis Capaldi, Anne Marie, and there is sometimes some perks that you get to go to gigs.
Yeah, so I'd say working with Valerie every morning is a plus. It's great that we actually get on, and it's not just for show. Also, I would say actually your listeners are fantastic. Like, we just have a great community in the morning, every morning. You know, they're loyal, they listen in every morning, they interact, and they kind of get our humor. So I think really it's the perfect mix of, you know, friendship and just good loyal listenership that makes just A1 to work for.
Voices that are usually unrepresented get the opportunity to broadcast and make programs, so they're hugely important for us. I mean, and for me as the manager, I mean, that's the reason why I got involved in community radio.
I started in student radio because I studied it in a PLC college. I studied advanced broadcasting in LCFE because I got rejected from college. Originally I got rejected from LIT, now TUS. But then I kind of fell in love with it and the freedom it gave me to do things kind of without the limitations that other forms of media would have, just implicitly. Radio was such a freeing thing, I learned, and it was a passion of mine. And it was through radio I got to do real stories that mattered to me. Like, I am someone who's been diagnosed with an invisible disability since I was very, very young. With Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, ADHD, and a bunch of other letters which don't matter right now.
We've been in existence for nearly 30 years now, and there's people like in senior positions in RTE, there's people like presenters and producers in BBC, like right across the world. There's people who come up through Wired, and if they're not like working within like broadcasting or filmmaking, they're somewhere along the periphery.
I had gotten my buzz for radio actually from Wired FM and LIT. So my first journey took me to LIT to study business computers. I walked past Wired FM and they were looking for volunteers. And I just said I wanted to do this. I always loved radio, but I never kind of pursued it because everyone was kind of doing the same courses in college. And I did my first show, and I'll never forget the guy's name. Damien was running. He was station manager at the time with Nessa. And he said, "How many times have you done this after my first show?" And I was like, "I've never done this before." And he was like, "You really need to do radio." He was like, you are destined to do this. I was just joking. I thought he was just, having a laugh, but the buzz just got me. And then I started doing community radio in West Limerick 102 as well previously. So my want for radio was there.
Being involved in Wired FM as a mature student and also as a mum, it's amazing to have a place to have my voice being heard, even if nobody mightn't be listening, but I still get a chance to kind of let go of a lot of stuff, have a bit of a laugh, play some music that we like to hear, and yeah, it's great. And then I get to go home and tell my kid, oh yeah, I was on the radio today. And he's like, oh, my mummy is on the radio. So it's brilliant.
We launched at 2:45. Never forget that day back in July 2007. And our first song was Timberland and Kerry Hilson, The Way I Are. And I can still remember the news starting with Kira and the 5-word weather as well. It was just a very exciting time for everyone.
For the first time ever, you're listening to Spin Southwest. It's all the hits, one station, and our first ever tune, Timberland, together with Kerry Hilson, The Way I Are.
In 2018, I actually left Spin to take on a role with Radio Kerry. So I was working as a training manager. So I was training the radio course for 2 years, had a great success with that. We won a Gold Imro Award back in 2019. We won 2 Bronze Awards as well. So it was a really great time for me to go away, learn more about radio, but learn more about myself. Radio is definitely my thing. It's something I love doing, whether it's on air, whether it's off air. Even if it was teaching when I was in Radio Kerry, I was still doing a bit of on air as well. So I think I'm kind of lucky that I've dabbled in all aspects of radio so far.
It's a really interesting time to be working in radio in Ireland, whether you're working in the voluntary sector like community radio or in RTE Lyric, 2FM. Radio 1, or in particular in the commercial sector. So the whole world has changed, the communication world has changed, as we know, obviously through social media, but even in something as fundamental as giving the news through audio, podcast and documentary making, and of course Spotify has made a huge difference. So it's a time of great insecurity really for long established businesses that employ a lot of people, and I see it in terms of where graduates from this course go, because there was a time when more than half of the staff in Spin Southwest, for example, were graduates of this course. It was a handy fit. A lot of them worked there part-time when they were students anyway. A lot of them graduated from Wired as well, straight through to Spin Southwest.
So my role at the moment is a content controller, station manager, and also the presenter of the Drive Time show. Spin Hits with Fits from 3 to 7. So I originally started here when we launched in 2007 as a part-time presenter. So I was doing Spin Hits Saturday and Sunday from 3 to 7. And then kind of after a year, I was covering shows, covering the breakfast show. I was covering the Zoo Crew Hot Party, I think it was called at the time. So I was just taking every opportunity I could get.
So our prep for the show, let's say, would start the previous day, all day, every day. We'd look for stories and things we could talk about on the radio. Then we'd come in the morning, come in quite early, and we'd meet each other up, have a quick meeting and discuss what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, every morning is different. Some mornings I'm passionate about a subject. Valerie might fight for another one. But, it never gets personal. We hashed it out and we decide what's best for the show. And then we just crack on and do the show for 3 hours and do the best we can.
When I started volunteering with Wired, I got given the breakfast show, and that was during COVID. And I was the only person who could come in person because I lived down the road. But it was such a fun time to come in, pick the music, just do something nice, and to do something pleasant when the world was just a dumpster fire of awful.
Once Communicore sold their holdings to Bauer Media, and in fact maybe it started before that, but certainly the trend is less and less human beings employed, more and more pooling of resources through the Bauer stations, more and more of acting as one chain with a few localised programmes, so less staff, so less job opportunities. So it's actually a really difficult time to be a journalist or to be a programme maker in commercial radio.
So Bauer Media took over from Dennis O'Brien's Communicore probably about a year and a half ago now, and we've definitely seen a lot of changes since Bauer came in. I think Bauer are more open to opportunities for staff. So luckily myself and a few other staff members here, we've actually been on national radio and given the chance to do shows on Today FM, where I think in the past the company wouldn't have been as open to using some of the presenters from youth stations. And I think what we get with Bauer is we get experience. They own plenty of radio stations across the world and across Europe as well. So for us, there's English speaking radio stations all across Europe for Bauer. So it just gives us more of an opportunity. I think it's a bigger company in print and in journalism and in radio itself. And I think the one thing Bauer like to invest in is opportunity, but also equipment as well. So all of our studios here in Limerick and Red FM down in Cork, and obviously Marconi House in Dublin, Today FM and 98 FM in Spain have seen a big revamp because the way radio is changing. And I think that's the one thing, is that Bauer are always looking towards the future. And I think when it comes to the on-demand services that we have as well, and when it comes to podcasting and our podcast hub Go Loud, there's a clear vision of the radio market has changed, and I think Bauer is in the present, it's doing it very well, but it's looking towards the future, and we've some really exciting things coming up. I think the introduction of the cash machine was a big one for Bauer. I think myself personally, I thought it was the worst idea ever. I thought that it wouldn't work for Spin, but it's actually been a huge success, and we've given away €1.4 million just this year. In 2023, it's 4 months, and we've given away 1.3 million. So I think Bauer gives opportunity to its staff, but I think it also gives opportunities to its listeners.
I think also for people listening, that's what radio can provide. It can provide this level of empathy, because you're just listening to it in your head. You build up this narrative for yourself. You build up these visuals that you make the story for yourself, and it builds up this empathy and builds up this understanding that you can get from other media.
For me, I always think radio will be a good companion for you, whether you're at home or you're listening in the car or you're listening on your own or with your loved ones. I think it's good crack to be able to listen to the radio because it's there, it's live, and the person is talking to you directly. It's probably changed dramatically with social and things online like TikTok and Instagram, and us getting used to doing those TikToks as we get older.
I think it's become a lot more celebrity focused, a lot more influencer focused, which I think is actually a bad thing. I think the art of radio is a craft. It's something you should study. It's something you have to learn. You have to learn the ropes. And I do think that over time, more recently, we have seen this sort of trend of people with a big following getting the jobs over people with the skill set. So I would hope that it doesn't go that way, but at the moment it looks like that's a trend. What I would say the pluses to radio are versus any other medium is that it's live, and that anything can happen. Unlike a podcast, they can do another take, they can do it again and again and again until they get it right. With live radio, it's live, anything can happen, and anything does happen.
It's just important to have a place, to have that voice heard. Even if I don't get into media, having the communication skills that Wired has given me will definitely benefit me in whatever job or whatever sector I end up in the next couple of years.
Radio itself might not disappear completely, but it's becoming less and less important in the very busy field of choices that people have. So you need to be able to put your content out there in different ways, not just on radio.